And we're live. I actually have 4 crazy people in one room and myself. So this is going to be quite a feat to have together. The behavioral panel. I'm going to start off with and get everyone to introduce themselves with Scott Rouse, since he's just drinking. Good timing.
Hey, I'm Scott Rouse. I'm a body language expert and analyst. I train law enforcement in the military in interrogation and body language.
Awesome. Chase Hughes.
Hey, I'm Chase Hughes, everybody. I teach interrogation, body language, behavior profiling to government agencies and corporations and people all over, and I'm a trial consultant here in the U.S.
Mr. Greg Hartley.
Yeah, I'm a former Army interrogator, Army interrogation instructor, resistance to interrogation instructor. I've written a bunch of books on behavior, and today I work mostly with corporations and Wall Street.
And last but not least, with the red shirt, because he had to stand out, Mr. Mark Bowden.
That is correct. Mark Bowden, expert in human behavior and body language. And I help people all over the world stand out, win trust, and gain credibility, including CEOs of Fortune 500, G7 leaders, and other ne'er-do-wells.
Now, are you a Star Trek fan, Mark Bowden?
No, I'm not in that kind of...
No,
okay,
I mean, so you don't understand the red shirt principle then?
No. Does that mean I'm going to get shot?
Yes. And Star Trek, the one wearing the red shirt is always the one who dies.
Change.
Okay, so I am going to jump out right away. You guys have an awesome channel, Behavioral Panel, where, I mean, you just started. It's growing like weeds. It's crazy. And you have now done body language analysis. Is that essentially what you call it?
Behavior, body language.
Yeah.
Okay, starting out with the highbrow with Carol Baskin. And then you went a little lower brow with Joe Biden, right? Or Tara Reid. And even lower brow lately with Prince Andrew. So what is... oh, wait, sorry. And then you had somebody, whether they were abducted by aliens.
Yeah, that's true, though.
That was fun.
Okay, so what is it that dictates who is going to be profiled?
I can hop out on that one. I think we do. We just decide, hey, this looks topical, looks fun. The one with the aliens, we just decided we wanted to do something that was less heavy considering the topics we were covering, and take a break and show that you can learn body language from just about anywhere. And it gives us a chance to comment on that.
Was that essentially a safer topic?
I think it was something that we were just going to do to, it was only going to be 20 minutes. You know, it was going to be something really short. We decided to get on there. It was just too funny to go.
Always say that.
Yeah, the Prince Andrew was going to be 20 minutes, the first one. So every time we do something, it ends up being, we just end up talking, you know. So we talk about 30 minutes beforehand, and then about 30 minutes after it's over, and then we just edit it down to, I guess, one episode.
It's about 55 minutes of Mark talking. Scott cuts that extra hour off in post editing.
Yeah, if you're paying attention, we don't really care about safe, though. We've not made the best decisions if we're looking for safe.
Okay, well, I mean, I didn't know if you went that direction to have somebody just silly. Like one thing I try to do in my group on Facebook or whatever is if I feel like there's a political tinge or taint or some sort of controversy, I'll try to go for the ridiculous. Because if you follow up heaviness with ridiculousness, it's hard to, it's a moving target type of scenario.
Yeah, well, we did do some of that, and I'm sorry to hug the spotlight for a second, but we did do some of that intentionally thinking about let's go do UFOs or Bigfoot or something like that, because you pretty well can rest assured that most of that's going to be a bunch of it. And we figured we would find somebody who was taking it seriously and took a polygraph and all that. And then we'll go after serious issues at another time. It's just, we need a break right then, right?
Okay, and one thing I appreciate about all of you, except maybe Mark, is that you're nerds.
That's very kind of you and totally inaccurate.
Well, you may be a nerd in a different way, because you're kind of like, my favorite part about Mark, every time I interview him, he's like, if I didn't have to do this, I wouldn't be here.
Every time I see him on something, I'm waiting for somebody to intro him. And now, all the way from Toronto, Canada, he's from Britain in real life. Here it comes. Right now, it's Mr. Mark Bowden.
Thank you.
That's what it looks like every time he comes on. It looks like that just happened, and they just cut that out like a TED talk or something.
Yeah.
So I can guess, but who's the guilty party? Who wrangled the four of you into?
It was Greg's idea.
Really?
And it was Greg's idea, and I sent a little video out to everybody that said, "Hey, here's what Greg's thinking. What do y'all think about that?" And they're like, "Yeah, let's do that." So it originally came from, but we had talked about, all of us had talked about doing something together before.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, because Mark had brought it up, and then Chase was always wanting to do something in video on it. So,
Yeah, no.
and then Mark had brought it up, but Greg said, "Hey, man, let's go ahead and see if we can wrangle everybody up." And I said, "Okay, I'll do what I can do." So I just did a video and sent it.
Actually, funny story. Chase is the reason I have a YouTube channel.
No kidding. Well, tell us about that.
Yes, because last December you called, or no, it was November of 2019. You called me. I was down in Disney, and you said, "Hey, man, let's get together. We'll get the cameras and we do a video. We need to do a video." I'm like, "Well, I don't really do video, man." You're like, "Okay, yeah, but we get the cameras. We're local." And I'm like, "Well, I have an iPhone." And you're like, "Yeah, I have an iPhone too." And we were going to do video.
Yeah, and
So
I
we
said,
had
let's get a bottle of wine. We'll
Mhm.
we'll throw an episode down over a bottle of wine.
Exactly. And then in December, you wound up getting called to Fort Bragg or whatever. You're like, "Hey, dude, I just can't make it."
Yeah.
And I thought about it. I'm like, well, I don't really want to travel anywhere right now. What if we could do something like a live stream and, your audience, so you get a chance to talk to them, my audience, I could talk to them. And that was it. So you're the cause of this channel.
I'm honored.
He must not have watched it. No.
We've always wondered why people are shooting at him right now, but that's
exactly.
This is how
it's
I
clear.
met Chase, though. This is where I met Chase, was through this podcast, because I didn't know him. I didn't, pretty much everybody sort of knows everybody, and I didn't know him. And then it ended up he was into Colombo, which I'm into Colombo.
Yeah,
and remember on that thing we started talking about, I was like, "Holy smokes, man!" So
Yeah. And then Scott and I met for drinks in Nashville
yeah.
not too long ago.
And then you introduced me, and Mark and I worked with you, Mark, on the book. So having all four of us together has been great.
And that's how I first ran into Scott, is that I was looking for some people to help contribute to Truth and Lies, and Scott came up and we had a little chat, and I was going, wow, this guy's like, he's, as you say, Eric, this guy's pretty nerdy. It's like pretty nerdy. So he'd send me all these PDFs of documents and studies, and like, oh, okay, and he's like, read this, and I'm like, no way, I want to read that. Last thing I want to do is read anything. But if you've read it, like if you've already read it, I'm like, you should help me with this book. So he was expert editor on Truth and Lies, and along with Greg contributed. And I didn't know Chase at the time, because I think at that time, Chase, you were still in the military and you weren't publishing much of. I don't think the manual was out at that point.
No.
So you were a little more hidden at the time. If I'd have known you then, I'd have had you all over the thing like a bad rash. But
well, you speak about that. Oh, I have an off the wall question. How many of you guys are dyslexic or have ADHD?
I'm 2 for 2 there.
No. Okay. Yeah. I'm
Greg's
finding
the alpha,
that
so he doesn't have either.
it's a weird thing. It's not an insult. I've just noticed a lot of people in this field have one or the other. And something about it, especially with the reading difficulty, I think you're able to memorize and see more details of the world around you. So it's almost like a superpower. And I bring that up because I actually follow your site, and somebody had a question on your latest video with Prince Andrew. And I thought it was a fantastic question. It would be good to get you all actually speaking and answering it live. And that one is this. I have a question for you guys, if you're down for answering it. It's a bit of a long one. Actually, let me post it in the comments. Folks, I see some questions coming in, but jump in. Whoops, that was mine. I have mine. I'll read it. I have a question for you guys, if you're down for answering it. How much of behavioral analysis comes from your formal education, and how much comes from natural skill in reading people? I know there's a lot of technical stuff involved, but could someone with Asperger's syndrome be able to do well in that kind of field? I, for example, have very little natural instinct when it comes to reading the emotions and behavior of others. So I'm curious as to how that can be done professionally.
Oddly enough, I think Greg would be the one to answer this since he's the one that doesn't have dyslexia.
Yeah. So for me, I had this natural instinct for people. If you want to hit that piece for a second. When I first started interrogating, I was afraid to learn any form of body language, and there's not much out there. So instinctively, I could read people. So for me to come back later and learn the right words and figure out this, I don't even use the right words today. I use very specific words that fit the way I train. But I've had people who cannot read other people and who have contacted me from I Can Read You Like a Book or one of the others, for example, and said it was easy for them because when you put it into categories and you can build boxes around it, then it's fairly easy for them to learn it. It's just like learning any other language. And when I teach body language, I say the 5 components are like verbs, adverbs, prepositions, nouns, and adjectives. If you can remember it that way, you can learn it and you can just follow through.
I have a follow-up question for you, Greg, and I meant to ask this before in our interview. I noticed you talked about horses and comparing people to horses and things like that. I always had an affinity with animals, and I grew up on a ranch. I'm wondering if you grew up with animals and if being around animals and interacting with them actually helped you to reading the body language, because they can't exactly talk to you.
Right. Yeah. And I'll make this pretty quick. I live on a farm. I have horses now. I didn't grow up around horses. I grew up around dogs and that. But horses are better at reading body language than any of us because they don't have a spoken language and because they're prey and this looks like claws to them. So you do notice things from them that you cannot get from people. They notice subtle movements and that kind of thing. So it does help. It does enhance. You have to pay attention to them and you have to notice pain in them. A horse will use their mouth to show you pain. They'll use their ears to show you pain. They can't speak. So you have to pay attention. And horses can die from a stomach ache. They're not the best of creatures to keep as a pet.
Well, yeah, definitely. Especially if you feed them.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, now I'm going to pick on Greg a little bit. And one thing that I think is interesting is Greg seems to be the one who really likes eye accessing cues. I feel like the rest of you may not be on board.
Talking about it. That's all he talks about. I'm kidding.
So how does everybody feel about them?
Well, I'm okay. I'm okay with them to the extent that as long as you baseline and you know that not everybody is going to be exactly the same as everybody else. You may be able to group some people into patterns, but there is no universal pattern around that will apply to absolutely everyone. As long as you're not going down that route, you're going to probably be accurate enough, more than inaccurate, which is every time anybody does, it means a specific thing. But that's the same for all body language.
It's baseline. I agree with you 100%. And I'm a baseliner, even in eye movement, right?
And that's something like if you're watching the broadcast right now, you can try that out. If you go ask somebody like Greg did in one of our shows, ask somebody, I don't remember what the question was. What's the 5th word of the Pledge of Allegiance? Mm-hmm. You'll see everybody's eyes move a different direction. Then you ask them a geographical question, like what is across the street from your parents' house? What color is the house across the street from your parents' house? And you'll see them move a different direction. But everybody is a little bit different. But when we're recalling memories, we tend to have something that I refer to as home. So we'll look a certain direction regularly to recall memories, but everybody is different.
Yeah, and if you just want to use it as a tool, answer a question. Think of your favorite song and think of 4 words from your favorite song as you're listening to us, and you'll watch your eyes drifting around your head. You're trying to recall information. And all a good body language person's doing is asking that question, looking for where you normally go for something that you were recalling, and then looking for deviation. That's it.
When I first started learned about eye accessing, when I first started hearing about it, and then I met Greg, and I read all his books. I was reading his books, and I was apoplectic when it came to that, because I couldn't find any studies that showed that was true. I couldn't find anything that said, yeah, this is what's happening. I found the NLP stuff, and it's like, yeah, and
Moravian?
All that. Well, not necessarily. But
no, I didn't know if you were relating it to the Moravian thing that everybody got wrong too.
Oh, no. we'll talk about that too. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. But the whole thing where you always look one place for stuff. And then Greg said, no, most people will do that. You know, what we're getting is the anecdotal evidence of those things. So I didn't capitulate to yeah, that's what happens every time, or that's where they all are the time. But explain to me by taking me out in the hall and showing me by asking 2 or 3 people questions, because we got in discussion with it. We were doing our course, body language tactics, and he said, and I said, I'm not so sure. I'm just not with you on that. I can't find the research on that. And I can't find anything that says it's true. There's a study called "The Eyes Don't Have It," and that was my end all for this. This shows that isn't true. But what we do know is you do access, like Chase was saying, you have a home. You go home. Mine's always over this way for most everything. For music, it's down this way, So, but that's me. Other people will go up and around and all those things. So you got to figure out where theirs are by the baseline, like Mark was saying. And the thing that Greg lives by is once you get a baseline, you understand where they're looking, how things are going, then you can start basing off that. And up to that point, I wasn't into that at all. And I'm still iffy on it when it comes to accessing the same things every time. I know if I'm talking to somebody and they're always bang, 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 then I ask them something else in a question like that, and they go, and they look over that where their eyes kick up for a minute, then I know something's different.
You got to remember as well that this stuff first taught by Bandler. Bandler's a total charismatic. And so people would come out of working with Bandler and they'd go, yeah, no, it totally works. You look up there and it's like, oh yeah, you just spent 3 days with Bandler, didn't you? I mean, you're in a trance state now with Bandler. If you didn't do that before, you're doing that now because Bandler told you to do that. And my experience of that was, with Bandler is that everything just took too long. I would think to myself, look, the person I'm having a conversation with will have left by the time I've tried to work out what their eye accessing cues were. So for me, as a young kid, not being able to interrogate people and hold them in a room for 48 hours, I needed stuff that wasn't that tricky in order to work out what are people thinking and feeling and what might I do in return in order to engage with them better, because all I was ever interested in is how can I get on with people a little bit better.
Okay, you actually have the same thing as Henrik Fexius, who I've had. He became a magician because he wanted to get on with people better. And perfect thing from the audience. Tip 1: if they can't see your red sock,
that's usually not a good route, but okay.
I got to bring in questions from the audience here. Julia Shaw says, tip 1: if they can't see your red socks, then wear a red shirt. And I've seen Mark. You have the red socks? No,
no socks.
You don't want to see that part.
All right.
No socks today. You know what? I mean, I would do normally when I put on my stuff, being on video now, which is most of my life at the moment. I'm fully in whatever you'd see me in if I was doing a keynote. But I was talking to the guys earlier, and they're going,
Eric's casual.
Usually these are pretty casual, and I'm like, why don't you wear my jacket and my. So it's like, okay, no, I'll join in. So no socks. I mean, this is me how I normally am.
Mark, Greg, Scott, and I were all going to put on suits after you agreed to wear a T-shirt.
Oh, that would have been great.
We decided not to.
Speaking of which, while I've got Mark, I got the next comment. Somebody's very disappointed with you, Gavin Stone. He wanted to know. You said you were going to do this nude.
We lied.
Now, of course, only one of you has publicly performed nude.
Yes, on a number of occasions, not just the one.
Yeah,
the first big. So I was an actor for many years. So that came from my obsession with visual theatre and visual images, and so I got really stuck in a good way in this area of how do you tell stories with pictures and how do you influence and persuade with moving pictures. Had a huge amount of success around that, and then kind of standard shows and film and TV would want some of what we were doing in that world. And so the first kind of really, really big show I had was 6 Degrees of Separation in the West End with Stockard Channing. And I was naked for the whole time in the West End for about a year.
Hold on.
Oh, good. That makes my logo look nice. You can keep that up, Scott. Thanks. Definitely a stronger watermark.
Kevin,
All
that's
right.
just one note. You just need to remember not to trust people who interrogate.
Hey, Eric, there was a part of that question. Somebody asked about how much was it due to formal training and your college experience.
Mhm.
I think everybody here will agree it's 0%.
That's right.
They don't
That's right.
teach that stuff in college. So none of that is formal college education.
In fact, the best part of our panel is that each of us come at this from a different angle because we came from different lives. I was a military guy and then a corporate guy. Scott's a music guy and then this. Chase has been a military guy and then all the hypnosis and stuff with that. And then the Mark with the acting and this. This creates a different background than you would have if there were a school that you just walked out of and knew everything.
What are the strengths that you see in your peers, Greg?
Yeah, I think every person, if Chase is the best academic guy I know, I called him the first time we did the show and said, I love the fact that he cites studies and he's got the details and that piece. I will tell you that mine is more broad and, I've read studies. I don't remember every study I read. I'm just not wired that way. And it's a beautiful thing that Chase can cite and get to the point and very meticulously detailed in his analysis. Scott has a broad understanding of people from many different worlds, probably has as much exposure to people as anybody and brings a different look. Mark has this big people, this how the world works, and this means this, and this means this, and how it all ties together. Doing the Prince Andrew thing, for example, having Mark on there is fantastic. Talk about British culture and the royal family and all that. All of us have just different skill sets, and I think they're complementary.
Yeah, and to that point of the dyslexia piece, that's just how my brain works. As a dyslexic, I've got all this stuff in my head and it's dotted around like there's images, pictures all over the place, and they connect up in ways that just kind of happen in front of me. And so I just kind of communicate the connections that I'm seeing between stuff that what I understand from talking with people is other people don't see those connections. You got somebody like Chase who just, he's there and he goes, I have monitored the heart rate of the prince based on the. It's like you've done what? And I can just see him there, counting. Counting. It's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. At that point, you just want to go. I just love that. I love that you'll do that because I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna do what I do, and it's either gonna be helpful or not. And Chase is gonna do what he does, and it's gonna be helpful or not. And it's just that brilliant diversity of thought which keeps everybody honest and on their toes, but also because on the whole we'll have probably read some of the same work. I mean,
Sure.
You'd have to, but I know there's experience and books that I have that there's just no way the other guys have had access to, and I know it's the same for me. There's experience and work that they've had access to. There's just no way that I would know about that. And so you put the four of us together, and you certainly got something quite powerful and entertaining, hopefully engages people, and they go, oh, I really want to know more about people. I would say, not so much body language. That's a good entry point. It's more about I want to understand people even better.
While we're picking on Chase, I have to point this out. It's so funny because it leads into the cubic feet of research that I think you just about. But this is Chase Hughes. Okay. I brought up this book. I went and dug it out. It's G.H. Estabrooks. Okay. It's a hard to find book.
Yeah.
And I showed it to Chase. He goes, what? I don't care about that. I went and got his direct research.
I went to his house.
Right. And then how many cubic feet of research? That's how he describes his research is like, no, we would say X number of papers. He says cubic feet.
You'll never live that down, will you? Yeah. That's going on your on your headstone. He measured research in cubic feet.
Yeah, I could see Chase getting a restraining order at some point.
What I love though is when I met Scott and had Scott on, Scott was like the obsessive researcher, et cetera, especially with his partnership with Greg. And I said, Oh, I gotta introduce you to Chase.
Yeah. So and then we emailed a few times, and then when was it? I was like 1 o'clock in the morning. My FaceTime thing went off. What the hell? Excuse me. What the heck is this? And it was Chase FaceTiming me. I'm laying there in the bed. And he's laying there. What are you doing? On sleep? Probably fairly soon.
Do you say it at least sexually?
We were both.
What are you doing? How you doing?
We were both what?
I think we were both in bed.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was laying there in bed. I was like, what the heck is this? And Everett's like, I don't know. I was like, what's up, man?
Can we put their windows together so they can get a room?
Don't do that to me.
Yeah. That if that starts happening with me, I'm out.
It's like,
Love you, mean it. But.
I told you to look at your app. Don't forget I told you to look at your text. So just
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, Mark, you're with 3 different interrogators. We talked about how your end is actually really different, especially because of the acting side and things like that. These 3 have all dealt with what am I missing?
nothing.
Oh, whatever. I can't read anything because there could be something going on behind the scenes. You never know with this bunch.
I was pulling out Mark's favorite book.
Oh,
you got a good copy there.
That is
there we go.
Is that a paperback?
Look at that.
I got the hardbound one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a rare copy to get.
Is it?
I think so.
Yeah,
What's the publishing date on that?
What's
now we are going to nerd on you.
Here we go. Yeah.
Hang on a minute.
This is Triad Grande. So this is the English edition. And this would be like 19...
Hang on a second.
This is 1977.
Hold on. We're burning your air looking at books, but
yeah, well, figures. Chase, were you even born in 77?
Nope.
Oh, good Lord.
I think I had one of the first editions. I got to go look. The hardbound. Yeah.
You got the hardbound?
I do.
See, look, I got this one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's a piece of... That's
a piece of junk. It's a piece of junk.
Stuff's coming out.
Look at the size of the pictures in this. That's what's great about it. That's what I love about it. Pictures are so good.
I taught this in the Army, and I used to force guys to read this to make them uncomfortable. Man watching.
Just make them hold it. They don't have to read it. Just make them hold it up.
Look, see, it's this thick, but you can't. But it's just like I love the book. I love it, but I can't find the big.
Yeah, we got to get you a good copy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've got
my first
that.
copy.
Robert McLean really likes the depth you guys go into, like right now.
Robert's that kind of guy. Robert's always talking about that.
Like, what's the publishing date?
We can't help it. Is the problem?
Yeah.
Yes. No.
Robert's all the time talking about that, though. That's why Robert's all the time saying that stuff.
Is he now?
That's Mr. McLean's kid.
Oh, well, there you go. And we got Gavin Stone, and I'm burying a couple of you. So do you find there are any certain behavior traits that are more common among particular demographics? For example, rich people tend to do X more than poor, or English people do this more than US guys. And he's English, so, he already knows about you.
Yeah.
Mr. Bowden.
Certainly, Gavin will know from English society, there are certain signals that you might be able to give that would allow somebody to know immediately, consciously or unconsciously, what class you're in, what economic bracket, where you're from in the country, what school you went to. I can usually tell exactly what part of London somebody might be from. So there's all kinds of nonverbal cues that will allow us to understand somebody's values, beliefs, rituals, customs, goals, concerns, and those can be consciously or unconsciously delivered. However, the same signals don't mean the same thing in every culture. Like, if you got 4 stars in the Marine Corps, it's not the same as having 4 stars at McDonald's, but it's still 4 stars. It's like, it's still 4 stars. But if you show up at McDonald's and start saluting, they'll think you're weird. Same as if you head down to the Marine Corps barracks and ask for a Big Mac. It's not gonna you read the signal, but you didn't understand the meaning of the signal.
Well, and that's a definition of culture. The very definition of culture is controlling how you communicate that. I mean, when I lived in Korea, I can still remember an NCO getting into an argument, this officer coming over and scolding him, and his body language went stiff, arms by side, lack of eye contact. In the Middle East, eye contact is overdone. So culture plays into that, and culture changes the way we would normally use our hands and our bodies and that kind of thing. That's a definition of culture.
Culture or otherwise, is there a particular person or type of person that you find nearly impossible to read or very difficult or challenging?
So
Chase.
Autistics are tough.
Harder. So
Yeah.
when I taught for some of the lettered agencies, and they hired this young woman, Chinese national, as a child came over from China, really brilliant young lady. I taught her body language for 8 hours and then could not read her body language. That was the most impressive thing I've ever seen.
What happened? She just what dummy did she just get flat and give
Stoic.
no
Nothing.
language?
Nothing. None at all. Stoic.
Disappeared.
It was impressive.
Well, Chase, that's where you would come in, right? Because there's like the eye tracking tools that it's hard to hide a pupil dilation, if I'm correct.
Right. Yeah. There's a company out there right now called Converis, who has a system that I think is, in my opinion, is one of the most accurate readers in the world. And that's, I agree with Scott, Greg, that people who are on the spectrum tend to display less emotional indicators on their face and their bodies. It does make it a little more difficult. So you really, if you're talking to somebody who is on the spectrum, you've got to drill down to pronoun usage, word choice, chronology of what they're saying to really determine what's going on.
Yeah, that's where I go with that for sure. Is my experience of working with people on the spectrum, especially in business, because I work with a whole bunch of people who are running some quite large organizations who are neurally diverse, and in some cases I'll look at them and go, I'm looking at you now, and I don't truly understand what you feel about me, whether you love me or hate me, or I don't get it right now. And they will be brutally honest with you linguistically as to exactly what they're thinking and feeling. But you have to ask them. And when you ask them, they'll just tell you in a brutally honest way, which is often why they need a lot of handlers around them, because linguistically, they can be quite antisocial. Linguistically, non-verbally, they're not delivering a great deal of information. I think the jury is still relatively out as to why that might be. There's some people go, they don't have the right connections in the brain. Some people go, they have too many of those and they're compensating and suppressing that. I don't know the answer to that. But what I do know is if you're talking about reading, if you're talking about can you get to know somebody who's on the spectrum, yeah, you absolutely can, but they can be tough to be around, and so often you don't want to get to know them because they're socially tough to be around. But then at the same time, sometimes great fun because of how brutal they can be.
Okay, now while I have you, and this is not by any means an implication with spectrum or otherwise, it's just a character who has a lot of movements and I think is difficult to read for a lot of people, or maybe is often misinterpreted. I shared them with you guys beforehand, and I want to play a clip and see if we can explore. And essentially it is Bill Gates, who's under fire a little bit lately. I don't know if people are just misinterpreting him or what, but he is a controversial figure.
I'm not getting your sound. Are you guys getting sound? Did you check your apps?
I can see just fine, but I can't hear.
Yeah. Did you check your text? Chase, check your text.
Yeah, so he's gesturing. He is illustrating, doing everything everyone else does. The thing you have to remember with Bill Gates and Donald Trump and these people who are in what I call super typical roles. They're off to the right. They are the alpha. And it might not be what you traditionally think of as alpha, but they are the super typical in their organization. They get away with a lot that you normally would not see in terms of body language, because no one around them is going to say, hey, you look goofy. Don't do that. They're not. So they get away with it, and people start to emulate, and then they're insulated, progressively insulated, and they get away with a lot of strange body language. You can see it in a lot of these guys. They are different. It's just who they are.
Yeah.
Chase.
For sure.
You actually, we talked about it beforehand, and off screen you were kind of like, well, he's sort of boring, and I don't think there's a lot there. Do you want to go into what your thoughts are on the subject? Yeah,
he's a brilliant guy, and I think when God or the universe gives you an IQ that high, that something else gets taken away just a little bit. And it's true with everybody who was a brilliant genius in our time. There's maybe not taken away, but they think differently. They view the world differently. And that's one of the reasons he's never had like a killer speech. He's just kind of a boring guy. But what we're seeing here with this analysis, the eye contact, his eyebrows are going up with the eyebrow flash. This is what some might call masking. But a lot of this behavior is coached from a professional. This is professional coaching, and he can afford that.
Okay. You see CEOs all the time, even that are not Bill Gates. They've got a communications department, they've got a legal department, they're going to get some coaching. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Mark, I had another piece, and you had some thoughts on it. Let me see. This is very disappointing that the sound isn't going through for you guys. What are your thoughts on Gates and coaching? I know you would mention a couple things that were interesting, and I will be borrowing this later and cobbling it together.
Yeah, so that video that we were just watching there, I mean, I think the one thing that is notable for me is that you see him, leaning back and quite tight in. You also see it in that other video that you showed us where he's a bit more demonstrative because he's been coached to go into what I call third circle and lock out his arms to fill the space. But then he'll lean back and he'll get quite tight. But that's a behavior that I see consistently in a certain neural type that I often see running tech or running portfolios. I see that a lot in some of the top portfolio managers that I work with. And they're definitely neurally diverse. And you see them lean back and get really tight. And most people looking at them will go, oh, gosh, they're super nervous. Like there's something going on there. No, they're just thinking. And they're thinking in a way that maybe you and I don't think some of the time. And I think Chase is right. Totally accurate, actually. We only get delivered a certain number of neurons. Mm-hmm. And so if you're going to use your neural capacity in some area, it means you don't have any for another. And that can cause some interesting behaviors. That and just being, look, he's a tech titan. Remember, there's a reason why we call them tech titans. It's the titans even go up against the gods. We're giving them a metaphor there, whereas they battle the gods. So of course, as a titan, he'll have very different behaviors than you and I some of the time.
Scott, I wanted to roll to you on this too, because you've been around the music world. Mm-hmm. And there's a very different personality types that are in there. You also helped a lot of entrepreneurs with their pitches. So I guess there's a crossover. Mm-hmm. How would you describe the personalities there, let's say, versus what we see here?
In the music business, personalities vary. You'll have the shy artist type. Then you have the really outgoing type of personality, which gets along with everybody. Everybody loves him, those types. Ricky Skaggs, for example. Everybody loves the guy. He's a wonderful guy. You can't meet him and not talk about him every Thanksgiving from then on. He's one of those guys. Whereas Alison Krauss would be one of the kinds that isn't as she's friendly and lovable as she can be, but she's not going to be one of those types to be out and being, hey, let's all, where, and on some of them you have the artist who is it's all about them. It's the narcissist. They take the narcissistic road for some reason, and it's all about them. you know, and I've worked with all kinds of them, you know, everything from the shy artist to really high end, you know, artists. And it's yeah, but it's one of those things where the personalities vary greatly, but then you have styles, because you always hear, oh, he's a bass player, you know, so you get a pretty good idea what the bass player. Oh, he's a drummer. You get a pretty good idea what the drummer. For example, if we were a band, what we'd be doing here, Mark would be the singer, then Chase would be the drummer, Greg would definitely be like one of the songwriters, but he'd be more directing. He'd be in the band, but he'd be more direct. So he'd probably be the bass player.
We're having problems with Greg. Greg, you need to change up a little bit. We just don't know where to place you.
No, because he's sort of the alpha of the whole thing. So it's like he would always be like the manager.
Yeah, there you go. He's the band manager.
So, but still, he would be in it. You know what I mean? I'd be the guitar player. You know,
guitar player, not the bass player, not holding down the bottom and tying the rhythm.
No.
Scott's a very social guy, so not going to be the bass player at all.
Yeah. So, but then you have like Bootsy Collins, who's like as social as you can get.
Is that right?
Bass player. Oh,
There's a bass player. Well, they broke the mold when Bootsy came along.
Yeah, but he's a funk bass player too.
Yeah.
You know, that's almost a lead instrument.
In his case, it is. Yeah, it is. And what a sweetheart, man.
And
he's. I used to write him letters every day when I was in high school and junior high. I'd write him letters. You know, he and Roger Troutman from Zap.
How did you meet him?
I did a record with him. You know, I was a producer for a long time. I did a record with him.
In high school?
No. This was
I love it.
Years ago.
Yes, cows with Bootsy Collins.
Scott has about stories because of that music background.
Yeah. And he and I reconnected a few years ago. You know, so a buddy of mine called and said, Bootsy's going to be in town. He's going to be to the studio. You ought to come down. I came down. We connected again. And, but yeah, so that's how I met him was through Warner Brothers when I was working there. So
great. Mark and Scott have those really cool places where you meet famous people. Chase and I, we can't even tell you who we met, and they don't remember us and they like us. So,
yeah, I mean, Chase asked you. He uses me to get on video, so it tells you.
That's right.
All right, so we need to start answering some audience questions. This is Jade Simpson. Hello, gentlemen. This is Cynthia J. Simpson here. As you baseline, how long do you spend establishing that, assuming you are studying a relatively ordinary person?
Greg?
Yeah, I mean, I'm obsessed with the baseline. It's pretty quick. I ask simple questions, just talk to you, listen to your normal. I'm listening to cadence. I'm listening to choice of words, tone, pitch, all of that. And I'm listening. I mean, look, this is number one feature. So I listen as much as I look, but I'm also paying attention to your eyes, learning where you go. It takes just a few minutes. It doesn't take long to get a fairly good baseline. You hear something rushed in cadence, that's an indicator. If you hear something slow in cadence, it's an indicator. If you look at people as a whole message, words, body language, cadence, pitch, and tone, it's not hard. It just takes a few minutes.
Greg has a very specific line of things he goes down when he does it at the Waffle House. He'll be sitting there, he'll talk to the waitress and he'll go, I'll find out. So, and there's a good tick, 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 and he'll tell me where she's going to access. I'm like, well, yeah, you're right. Every time, just nails it. But he has this setup, which we all have our own setups when we're doing stuff. But he has a specific set of questions that he asks. And it's the same ones every time. You know, and just like, but you feel, and I'm like, yeah, and I'm not even paying attention. You know, that's how smooth it is when it comes in like that. Of course, you know, you're at a Waffle House and she's not expecting it usually, I wouldn't think. But but I think we each have our own ways to approach that. You know.
And let me just say for Cynthia that the phase of baselining and the phase of doing something else is not two separate things where there's a cutoff.
Great catch, right?
So that's the whole time. It's not like I spend a few minutes and then I start reading behavior. We start reading behavior from the very beginning, and the baseline evolves over time. I may get another data point in the baseline 15 minutes into the conversation when I ask them about a book that they've read or how they like their job.
Okay, Mark. Now, one thing about you, Mark, I always, and maybe I'm wrong for thinking about it, I always think of you as more training people how to project body language and being almost on the other end. While you do read, you seem to be very much in the how you talk to people, how you present yourself, how you act among others. It seems to be your specialty. Would that be a fair?
Well, I put it like this: is that what I'm trying to help people do is influence and persuade, and so nonverbal communication is going to be a big part of that. So if I look at what I might do around baselining and influence and persuasion, what I might be doing is working out if I'm very, very social with somebody, how social are they back with me? How are they social? How much do they mirror me? How quickly do they mirror me? How quickly? I would say things like that in most everyday work for me. When it comes to the idea of reading other people's body language, then Chase is absolutely right. You're baselining all the way along. And you're trying to pick up verbal cues alongside the non-verbal cues. Because here's a good example. In the Prince Andrew piece that we did, he does these foot lifts. And some of those...
Chase counts them.
Well, that's a different thing. That's the bounce. That's the little bounce of the foot.
No, I bet he counts the foot lifts too.
His foot will lift. And sometimes sometimes it's a barrier, and sometimes it's positive expectation. It's a sense of, oh, this is going quite well. But you only know that when you put it together with the words that he's using. So you can get a baseline as to what does the foot lift look like when he's using it as a barrier, and what does it look like when he's using it as a signal for himself that this is going well. So there's no point in... So baselining happens all the way through.
Are you baselining people in order to help them? Like, since you're help, yeah, like when you meet them, is that one of your baselines? Is like, okay, they tend to be shyer here, do this, do that, or have this personality trait that we can work on?
I'd be baselining them to see how much I can help, because they won't pay me to hurt them.
I think that's different than the rest. Because
and quite honestly, if you're reading body language of the people out there, like, I just go, why? Like, people send me all kinds of stuff and go, will you look at this film and work out what's going on? Why? What's wrong? Well, I want to know if this person's lying. Why? What's up? Like, they probably are. Is it that important? Like, because that's the interesting thing. Once you put money in it, once you go, will you pay me? You suddenly work out whether it's important enough. What's great about us getting together, that's what's about great is we're just doing it because we like hanging out and we have fun, But otherwise, would I want to sit down and watch, a thing of Prince Andrew? No. There's much better things to do in life.
Eric,
do it and hang out with these guys. That's really good fun.
We're nerdy. We're not that nerdy.
but being a nerd, and get back to the baseline, it's also how, and Mark just showed the perfect example of that. If whoever's watching this will go back and listen, what happens with Mark is, and one thing that I learned a long time ago, when I first started talking to people, one of the things I do, you always hear, you've got to look and you've got to listen and take everything into context with what's going on around you in that situation. One of my favorite things to do is to listen to the way someone talks. And when Mark, for example, and I'm just bringing this up because he just did it and I caught it. Mark drops his terminal consonants like on look. He'll say look like. And I don't know if that's British or whatever, but when he gets excited and he's in the flow of things, he'll start dropping those consonants, that last consonant on words like that, on the terminal consonant. Greg will do that almost like he sounds like he's from Mississippi. One time we were talking, and I'll notice that on him sometimes, but only like when you're at your house, Greg. That's when you do it. That's when you did it the most. When we were out there driving around, that's when you would drop him the most.
Well, Chase, you know why? It's the air. I'm in the South.
That's true. That's true.
It's just too hot.
That's true. And Chase is fairly steady. Chase's vernacular and his diction pretty much stays the same all the time. And all those things tell you one thing. For Chase, obviously a psychopath. The other two things.
All right. Well, while we're talking about psychopaths, we have an audience question. Robert McLean wants to know, do people with personality disorders such as narcissist or psychopathy are able to control their body language, or do they give themselves away as much as anybody else? And So Chase,
go with Scott. Scott had something ready to go.
Oh no, psychopaths are my favorite, man. Narcissists are my favorite. When the
is that the music world?
Yeah, there's some in there too. The psychopath and what I call the clinical narcissist. Keeping in mind, as Robert Harris says, he's the Michael Jackson and Elvis of psychopathy.
Father,
he's got a great book. He's got a great book called Without Conscience. That's a good one. And the other one is Snakes in Boots. That's what
there's the hair test
as well. Yeah, the guys came up with that. Yeah, I mean, this psychopath test. And so what you'll see is what they found was with psychopaths, or what I call the clinical narcissist, when they would be put in prison, they were trying to what do you call it when you what's the word, Greg? You what somebody? You what?
I'm sorry.
Rehabilitate.
Rehabilitate. When they're trying to rehabilitate them, and what they would find out was as they were trying to rehabilitate them, all they were doing was showing them how to act normally, because psychopaths don't know how to act normally. When they don't, most of them, when they first find out they're psychopaths, they're in their early 20s. They don't even realize they're psychopaths. And once they realize it, they don't realize that's what they are, and it doesn't bother them. They know something's not right, but they don't know, but it doesn't bother them enough to go check it out, because obviously they don't have the equipment to worry about that and make them panic. They can go, oh, I gotta look into this. Something's wrong with me. I gotta check this out. Yeah. They sort of discover it as they go along. There's several different ways they discover it. It'd take me 20 minutes and I'll get off on a jag there because that's my favorite subject. But they'll try to, once they figure out what makes you comfortable and what kind of behaviors you like, then they'll mold to that for that specific person. They'll have their overall things they do because they know humans like these things, like to see these behaviors in general. But then when you start getting down to specific people, then they'll like we all do in a way. We're all sort of chameleons. These can chameleon right to it, almost like that Terminator guy who's all silver, become the cop, and he become this and that. So they will become that person you want them to become. So they'll connect with you or marry you, whatever you want them to do, and then things obviously change from there. But I could go on for hours about that. It's my favorite.
But I would say the body language piece. The ones I've dealt with, their body language is no better. They just mirror better. They understand what other people want for some reason, and they're not empathetic at all. If you listen to Hare, but the folks that I've interviewed in my life, their body language was still there. If you look back at Ted Bundy, you'll see he does that glossy thing, that hyper focus, where he's paying a lot of attention to you and mirroring more than normal. But it's still the same body language. Scott, you agree with that? Are you seeing something?
Yep, I'm totally with you. I saw that as well.
Chase, no thoughts on psychopaths?
Yeah, so if we're talking about interrogation or deception here, or doing an interview of some sort, you're more likely to catch a psychopath using linguistic methodology than nonverbal. A lot of the nonverbal deception stuff that you read online, there's no body language for deception. It doesn't exist. All we're looking for is stress, which is typically absent in that type of psychology. So if we're just looking for stress and it's not there, we're more likely to catch it using the verbal signs of deception. And so there is still a way to do it, but whether or not you can catch somebody out with deception with a psychopath is not up to really your ability to read questions as much as it is in your ability to ask questions and direct your questions a little bit more pointedly.
And there's one fundamental problem with them. The reason you don't get the fight or flight that you would get. So if Chase and I are talking and I'm afraid I'm going to hurt his feelings with something, I feel stress from that. But if you have no empathy, you don't feel stress from what pain you're causing other people, then you don't find it. When you ratchet up the stress on a psychopath or a narcissist is when you're attacking them and they feel some kind of personal extinction threat or that kind of thing. They still show the signs of fight or flight because that organism is still going to try to protect itself. Stakes. Yeah,
I would agree. Here's the thing I would say with the psychopath is, are they any good at lying? Yeah, the really good ones are, and the really not good ones not so much. Just like you and I, sometimes we're really good at lying and sometimes not. It depends, as the guys were saying, about the stakes around that. A really good lying psychopath, you'll have married them and they'll have killed you before you ever work out that they were lying. I mean, that's what the really good ones. But
is this from working with world leaders, Mark?
I wouldn't like to say the word psychopath and next to the world. I mean, I'm not going to do myself out of a job. I haven't come here to lose money.
Now that's where his diction. Now listen to his diction. How clean it is right in there. Once he got a hold of what he's going to say after that stutter part, then he's like, "Here's what I'm going to say." Boom. Got to be really clear. That's what I'm talking about when you baseline someone.
Yeah.
So, and he was under stress right there. So it was a perfect example of that as well.
That's the first time I've seen Mark kind of pause.
You got it.
Thought.
Yeah, I paused. I looked off there. I went, "Why did I come on this show?"
Again,
I worked out it was Chase's fault.
yes.
10 people round. People will be visiting you, Chase.
Well, that's perfect for the next audience question. How much do you watch your own nonverbals when communicating, knowing what you know now?
0.
Right. Well, when we're doing our show, we could all watch each other and we all don't bother. We just do what we
come
do.
on, you do. Yeah, you do.
Oh,
We do.
there's too many people to watch.
I'll tell you what, at first, I'll change the pronoun. When I first start learning body language, it was exhausting because I monitored myself the whole time. And it's so exhausting that I said, I don't give a crap. I'm going to do whatever. If it comes out, it comes out.
I agree with you, Chase. When you first do it, you're so conscious of every little twitch and tweak and that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
And they wake up one day and go, I'm honest. I'm being honest. And when you interrogate, you're lying most of the time. So you have to trust that your body language is good enough. I've lied to people many times in an interrogation room and think, you believe that?
Well, Mark, you're an actor. Isn't that lying?
No, it's not lying at all because you're on the program or you're in the credits. It's not a lie. I mean, it's a controlled, kind of delusion whereby you're already telling everybody I'm going to be lying. Now, there are some people out there who'll tell you that they're able to read your mind. They won't say I'm a magician. They'll say, no, I'm actually reading your mind. Well, you're lying because there isn't a human being on the planet that can do that. You're conning me right now. So that's that kind of person, that kind of Uri Geller. And I will say, Uri Geller is a liar. He's just a liar because he says, oh, no, I'm in touch with angels. And no, you're not. You're doing a magic trick. And
actually, ironically, John Edwards.
I don't know John Edwards.
Well, let me ask you this, Mark.
Let's move.
Both of them.
Do you know someone whose name starts? Is there a Patricia in your life somewhere? Does the name Patricia?
Not a Patricia,
but yeah, she wants you to call her. You should call her. She wants you to call her.
So, I once went to to see a medium do the whole thing. It was fantastic. It was a brilliant show. Brilliant show. And the guy I was with, the medium went, I'm getting a signal and there's something that you were meant to do in the house and you haven't got it done yet. He was like,
really?
Like, yeah. There's some shelves that need putting up.
Go back.
Yeah. There's some shelves that need putting up. And you've lost somebody. He was like, yeah. My grandmother. Yeah. She says it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
They're doing exactly what we do. They're giving you permission to be stupid.
Absolutely.
Let me tell you something. I've always said this, and that's where I'm going after this, just so you know. When you see the commercial with me on there, I'm going to be a damn dog psychic. You know what I mean? I'm like, Patches, what's the problem? Let me ask you a question. Mark, what's that, Patches? Do you feed your dog food listen to me. Is your dog food brown? Do you feed it brown things?
Yes, always.
Don't do that.
He doesn't like that.
Patches doesn't like it's got stuff.
Doesn't like
you don't know it yet.
That's interesting because yesterday she was feeling a bit down.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Call Patricia. Is your dog's name Patricia?
Called Patricia. And she wasn't Patricia, but there was a character in a show called Pat, and I used to like that show.
I'm out.
So I think it's that.
I win.
I think it's that. Anyway.
On to the next.
We've got another
audience.
question coming in. Thank God. Thank the Lord.
When did each of you first discover your interest in the subject? This is from Grant Murrell or Murrell. I don't know how to say that.
I'll jump in. I got mine in SEER school. I got forced into an interrogation career, kind of a weird twist. I became an interrogator after learning to speak Arabic. The Army wanted me to use it somehow. So I went to interrogator school and from there straight into SEER, where we're teaching operators, Delta Force, Marine Force Recon, Navy SEALs, Chase, how to resist interrogation. And they would try to lie to you and you can't help. It's screaming at you. So you have to start to put words to it. That's where mine started.
Cool. Chase.
I'm glad you started wrangling this and calling names, Eric.
This is not a professional operation, obviously.
I got mine with some very specialized military training, and I made all that up. It was actually, I was trying to read girls better when I was like a 19-year-old. I wanted to understand how to tell when a girl is attracted to me or is interested in me. And that got me started before I started the whole interrogation stuff.
Scott.
Was that before or after you started giving handsome lessons?
That was long before.
Right. Okay. Long before. I got mine when I was a little kid from my dad being a doctor and watching him figure out what people were when they weren't being honest with him, because he would take me to the hospital with him sometimes when I was a kid, and I would watch him talk to people, and he would say, "That guy's not being honest with me." And I was like, "Well, how do you?" And when I was 6 or 7 years old, how do you know that? And he would explain. It wasn't like what we talk about today, the specifics of it, but just things they would do, how they couch things, how they would word things, and the things they would talk about around that deceptive part. So that's what
a
really
thing
is.
like he would ask him, so do you drink? A little. About how much? 2 a day, and he'd write down 6.
Well, it's sort of, it's no, but actually one of those things about about drinking too much came up as well. I don't remember that, but I remember that specific situation when I was little, but I don't remember what the outcome was. I remember asking about it, but I don't remember what he was telling me about it. So that, yeah, you did hit on that. That was good. Are you psychic?
Yes.
Your
Yes,
dog
I'm
told.
psychic. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Mark.
Yeah, so I was not very good at reading and writing. And so the only books that I read were comic books, just full of pictures. And I just loved pictures and pictures of people and the interactions. And I just got very good at being obsessed with the patterns and the images of people and how they were interacting. And I think it started from that. And that's what got me into visual theater and film and television. And then I kind of went, well, how am I going to, really make any money around this? And found out that people in business were, on the whole, there was just such a low, I guess a low ability at being able to communicate really well. And I had a lot of skill around that, and skill because of technique. I'd really learned technique. So that's where I got into the techniques of how to use body language to influence and persuade. Okay,
I have to put this in. I'm going to jump around because I think this is hilarious. Grant Morrell says, I see Greg as a Roger Waters style bass player.
Greg's too nice to be Roger Waters.
Yeah.
He's not a nice guy.
You haven't seen what Greg's capable of.
Oh yeah,
That's a good point.
You see the show, Greg. You see the show, Greg.
I
You see
stand
the show,
down.
Greg. But when it's show time, it's a different Greg.
yeah. If I've got some visual evidence on TV shows that might differ with you, Mark.
We have a comment. I love how the behavior analysis community are all great friends. None of you are in competition with each other, and you all have different angles in which to fill in the gaps of behavior analysis.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Sarah.
That's a fine statement.
All right, I love this question. What is something in the area of body language that surprised each of you that was the opposite of what you initially thought? And don't say arms crossed. I'm bored of that.
That was my go-to.
I was going to use that as well.
I think the breaking eye contact. For me, is breaking eye contact. Is that what you're going to say, Greg?
Yeah, I was going to say when you first start, it's those maxims, the breaking eye contact, the scratching your nose, all the crap you read that's body language. If you touch your nose, you're lying. If you break eye contact, you're lying. All those basics that you learn when you're looking for
that's one of the things that sort of bonds us is we're not absolutists, as in when I got a huge nose, so I just moved my hand, I accidentally hit it. So when you scratch your nose, it means this every time. When you cross your arms, it means this every time.
Right. Yep.
Or when you do things that are just because people say, and you see all those news shows, they say, well, he went like this, so it means that. We can say it suggests something or indicates something, or there's an issue there with that, but you can't say for sure that means that every time. Same thing Chase was saying at the top. But that's the sort of thing we that sort of bonds us, I think, is there are so many people out there that go down that route because, and here's where I stand on my nerd soapbox for this stuff. They don't redo their research. They don't know where this stuff came from, and they don't care. They just read it, like that Moravian thing we were talking about earlier. You asking about the 738-55 rule of communication. Never has there been anything other outside the JFK assassination that has been a. I'm just kidding.
We have range. That's range now. We got it all the way from grassy knolls to the Moravian principle.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where everybody believes one thing because that's what they're told over and over, and it's wrong from the top, So that's one thing that sort of bonds us is I don't think we put up with the bullshit that most people do. That will just when you're out training somebody or you're training a group or talking to a group, and you can tell them anything you want to. I could go out and tell them. I could show my brother how to be an expert and not give him any information just to say certain things. Greg wrote a whole book on it on how to do that. So, which I read too. But that's one of the things that bonds us is that thing where we don't take any of that we know where our information came from go to the matrix on it.
And every one of us baselines, we may use different techniques, but all of us, Chase will say I'm obsessed with baseline and he's right, but so is he. We just use it in different ways. We are looking specifically for deviation, every one of us. And the stuff we first learned, if you first picked up the book, it said when a person touches their nose, they're nervous. When a person does this, they're nervous. Well, that's not always true. Some people are just weird and do this all the time.
Greg, I'd say you're very into Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
My driving force.
And Chase is into digital flexion and authority.
The thing that I learned that really shocked me that I learned wasn't really true. I thought body language and behavior and psychology was about science. And I mean like a hard and fast where there's an equation and an exact outcome. And I thought I go into learning about human behavior and I'm like, holy crap, we're just chimpanzees with no hair. And that's basically what we are.
Shaved apes.
Yeah.
What is it you always say, Greg? We're like, what is it? Like you're in a group with a bunch of chimpanzees and you realize you are one?
Actually, Mark gave me a great line. I'm actually a chimp who thinks that I'm Jane Goodall instead of the other way.
That's it, Jane Goodall. All right, next question. If someone is talkative, but only when you ask questions, what does it mean? In other words, they will never be the first one to ask or initiate a conversation.
I think it'd be a stretch to say exactly what it means because it could mean many things, right? A person can be very shy. They might not want to open themselves. In other cases, it might mean they're bored or disinterested and they're polite. Humans are complex creatures and we're kind of like a little onion, right? When you're this little person and you just keep adding layers and layers. I often say you add hair and scars and turn it into what you are as an adult. So,
if that, in that situation, if you'd like to figure out a little bit more, take a look at their body. Are they making more eye contact? Do they breathe through their mouth when they're around you? Is their mouth open and relaxed? Is their body language relaxed? Do they look at you while they're speaking?
Is their body language internal or external, right?
So here's where I go with that is when people generally ask me those questions, which seem like they're trying to be very general, but my guess is the person asking that question has somebody in their head right now that they're thinking of. And so my question is always, so who are you thinking of right now and why is it so important to you? Because at the moment, because like I can't. And you could actually answer the question right now in the chat because we can't get to that person right now and baseline them and look at them, but you're live and really here, and clearly it's something on your mind, and that for me is the most interesting thing, rather than somebody who will never meet. What I call the ghost. I often call it coaching the ghost. It's like we're going to talk about something that will never meet anywhere, which is a real live human being who you probably know. And so, I come to this thing of a lot of the body language that we end up reading is not us particularly, but us as humans in general. It's a better indicator of how we're thinking and feeling than it is of the other person, how they're thinking and feeling. And I think what we're often trying to do as experts in this area is try and be more objective about that, and try and see the picture devoid of our biases or our projections onto it.
And you hear that in us being broad because we can't see what you see. And if you ask me, in my experience, a lot of people I talked to didn't want to talk to me and would not do anything but answer questions. But that was because they were in handcuffs. There's a big difference in those two, right?
Well, there is that. And it also could be a gender question too.
And it could be,
like maybe a crush or flirting or something.
Good. Which is why you want to go. So what person, when, where, who exactly are you talking about right now, and why? Like, that's the interesting thing is why? And is there a better question? Like if you had this opportunity, because this is amazing, 4 people, and you want to talk about this thing here, narrow it down, and we could get somewhere.
Well, next question, because we're tighter on time. This might be a Mark one too. I don't know. Have you seen people permanently change what they desire in life, how they interact with others, etc., their character, emotional sets, etc., when they permanently change their body language? And it sounds almost like a CBT question. The whole.
Yeah. So at that point, you're going to, if you change your body language, do you change your persona or your character or your value system? Or no, you might see elements of yourself, which is built up of various facets. You might see elements of yourself have more volume and project more, but would you change your actual core? No.
I can give you an exception to that. I can give you an exception to that. Chase and I both have been through that. And as you aware, that whole establish an alpha. Now we're back to Maslow again. The whole establish an alpha to emulate that alpha is basic training or boot camp. Yeah. And it does fundamentally change how you move, act, and think. Right. Yeah.
So but the only proviso I would have put on that is there are some ways that you can do that to people, but on the whole, they're illegal. Now, my guess is when you joined or were conscripted, where you guys would have joined, you signed some documents to say, okay, you can do what you like,
whatever you please.
Yeah, it's called basic indoctrination training.
Yeah, so and that happens over time, and also that was social as well. You're doing it with your colleagues, so there's social training going on there. To do it quickly, the ways of doing that quickly, to my understanding, are illegal. They're not. You can't. The Geneva Convention says no.
Well, we had a couple of guys. I've done 2 TV experiments where we had people sign up for it, one for British TV and one for the History Channel. Some people are just not swift about signing up and signing away their rights for things. Chase and I.
Hey, Eric, there's a great question here from Z the Boxing Cat.
Good.
Well, we got to have a cat. Is there one specific universal thing that screams liar?
I thought this would be great for everybody.
I think being a politician, right?
Yeah, evidence. I mean, if you got what we call, sensible fact, which is something that 3 or more people can sense and they know it to be true, and then you have somebody else going, "Oh no, that isn't correct." That screams to me liar, because it's like, no, we got 3 people who know it's a sensible fact, and you're telling me. But even then, it's like maybe they don't see it. Maybe they're delusional. Maybe
I think what the mixed martial arts tiger is looking for here is a body language indicator.
Yeah, that's tough. Body language is tough. What I will tell you, if the story is way too complicated, it's way too complicated. There's a great example right now of a woman who drowned her son in Florida, and she says in the story that
Allegedly,
pushed her. She confessed.
oh, okay.
So she said that someone pushed her off the road with a car and then asked her for drugs, and they kidnapped her son and said, "When you get the drugs, come back." That sounds awfully convoluted to me. Why not money so I can go and buy drugs or something else? When I hear that, I immediately go, okay, there's a red flag. What you're not going to hear from any of us is it always means liar, but red flags in logic, red flags in anything that doesn't make sense to you, look out for those. Your brain's designed to find that.
Is statement analysis a good approach? I've heard that from Lena Cisco, that a lot of times she'll go right to statement analysis when she's trying to detect these things.
Yeah,
because you need that, because you need evidence. Because we're not in a world where you have just kings who, if they think you're a liar, get to slaughter you. It's like you've got courts of law, and there has to be evidence. So I mean, has any of us here got a fail-safe way to spot a liar non-verbally? Anybody? Bueller?
We all lie, 100%.
So what I think, if we were just to say, what do you think is the most reliable body language indicator of deception? For me, it's facial touching.
It's what?
Facial touching. For me, facial touching.
Okay.
For me, it's eye lock.
And according to research, I'm just going off.
Is that because of the stress that you're touching, because of itch or whatever, because the blood is flushing to the surface? Or
there's 3 different pieces of research that suggest it. But one's about blood flow, one is about self-protection, the other one is about like your body manufacturing an itch to fulfill an impulse to cover your mouth, because that's an impulse that we have. But I'm not sure what it's for. But academically, as Greg said, I'm obsessed with that stuff. That is the most common deception indicator.
So in mine around eye contact, way too much eye contact, the hypnotic eye contact is a go-to for me. It doesn't mean they're lying, but it certainly gets my attention very.
Me too.
Yeah, mine's for. I'm going with the not breaking eye contact. When somebody looks at it and they keep talking and they keep adding, and they don't hush. You know, they'll tell you the answer and you just sit there a minute and they start talking again. That's one of the cues that makes me want to ask more questions, because you really can't tell from one thing. So you have to know how to ask questions and what questions to ask. So that's one way for me.
Well, the follow-up, Sarah Van Diver says, in Chase's training, he says not to call people out when they do lie. Is there a time that you should call them out?
I say not to call them out, not during interrogation training. I say this is during rapport building. I'm trying to develop a relationship with somebody. Like, hey, you learn lie detection. You're not going to go to your friend and be like, dude, you did not pay that much for that car. I can tell you're lying because this, and this. It's usually a bad idea.
Yeah. So how many times have we been in a situation where you know the person you're talking to is not being honest with you, but you keep that information and you learn what their things are when you know they're not lying. And when it starts at the very beginning, you'll know what's happened with that person. Why would you let them know? Spotting a lie is one thing. That's great. But you need to know why they're lying. So if you call them out as soon as you see it, then you're losing out. You won't find out why they're lying.
Well, accepting a lie is an important social skill, just as lying. If you can't lie and you can't accept a lie and you can't tell the truth and you can't accept the truth, then you can't get on socially. The key is knowing when to do it in order to be social. You know, if I'm telling a story, you know, and everybody jumps in and goes, well, that's not accurate. I can tell you didn't give an accurate number there. I'm going to be like, yeah, because I'm trying to tell a story. It's just better. It's just better if it's 100 people rather than 73, which is the accurate amount of people. You know, it's just a better story because we're trying to get on here. You know, and we're trying to get on as human beings. So we have to be able to not call people out as liars sometimes. And then sometimes you got to be brave and go, I think that's not true.
Well, I'll tell you, one of my better interrogations that I was proudest of is breaking someone simply by pointing out. I would say, okay, I'm going to ask you some questions. I've been watching you long enough now. I'm going to ask you questions and tell you when you're lying. And I would say, so Sarah, whoever I'm talking to, I would say, okay, I know you're lying here. I know you're lying here. I know you're lying here. Now, there's something I didn't know whether she was lying about or not. And when I got to that point and I said, so why don't you finish this one for me? And it's another, Chase, this is another We Know All. I didn't know what she had done, but she told me. It worked out. So as long as you can tell them that you know when they're lying, they'll finish out the sentence for you. There's a right time to do it in an interrogation.
And if I'm in interrogation, I usually do it a really a nice way. I'm a very, very nice interrogator. So I would say something like, Greg, I've been doing this for a really long time. And if there's one thing I can tell when I'm talking to somebody, it's when I'm not getting the full story.
Yep.
And then I'll just kind of launch in and.
Well, you do the Columbo thing.
You like the Paul McCartney of interrogation instead of the Roger Waters of, I'm just being pleasant. Just a pleasant interrogation.
All right, I'm going to close out with this question, which I feel leads as a perfect closeout. What products do you guys have for sale, classes, seminars, etc.? Essentially, this is to wrap it up. I'm sorry we can't get to all the questions, but time to plug. We got to plug. Greg, Greg, you got to hold it down. You have 11 books. We can't go through all.
Yeah. So if you're looking for a business book, I've got the most dangerous business book you'll ever read. I've got a ton of books on just pop culture stuff, liars and that kind of thing. And even a dating book for women. And then Scott and I have Body Language Tactics, which is a group of micro courses we did together, and we're doing more things like that. And we're working on another book. So yeah, get product out there.
And you go to bodylanguagetactics.com, and we're having a sale right now because of the COVID thing. Usually it's, I'm just kidding with you guys. It is on sale, but I'm not going to go down that road.
Mark, I'm going to pick on you next.
It should be obvious. What?
I don't know. What?
I don't know. Is that not obvious? Anyway, just head over to truthplane.com. There's shed loads of stuff over there. Fill your boots. Enjoy yourself.
I'm going to finish off with Chase because Chase has an announcement, I believe, about a book that may be dropping anytime.
Yeah. And one thing on truthplane.com, it's not just a shopping cart thing. You can go in and there's a ton of free stuff.
Yeah.
That I've personally downloaded before I've ever even met Mark. And I just didn't tell him when we met each other.
Stuff.
But if you just go see my name down here, it's chasehughes.com. There's a lot of free training. There's body language interrogation training, all for free. There's courses on there. My book is called The Ellipsis Manual. And we have a fiction book that just came out called Phrase 7, which drops out on Kindle Sunday morning.
Very cool. And the Ellipsis Manual, there will be an audiobook coming out in the upcoming months.
Yes, narrated by a guy named Eric Hunley.
Wow. I've seen that guy. I know that I can hook you up with him if you need to talk to him.
And don't forget the behaviorpanel.com. That's a place.
Yeah.
Oh, everybody. Yeah, behaviorpanel.com, which leads to our YouTube channel, The Behavior Panel, which is, I think, one of the fastest growing channels I've ever seen.
Totally. Yeah. It's ballistic.
It is.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
But Eric, really quick, Tim Strake, I think I'm pronouncing that right, had a quick question. Just round the table for 10 seconds each. What do you suggest to people wanting to improve their understanding of body language? So what's the book that did the most for you guys?
Cool.
Besides your own.
Well, what started me was The Naked Ape, getting your brain to think about humans differently. Very simple book. It talks about us as apes and gets you to think differently. The biggest thing is, in terms of books, don't look at one, look at many. And not just mine. Even if I could sell you every book I have, I would tell you read other
Well, you have enough to be an assignment.
Read other people's work too. It's important that you mount.
Yeah.
Scott.
I've got so many that I really like. I always go back to I Can Read You Like a Book, which is one of Greg's books, and then Joe Navarro's book, What Everybody Is Saying. Anything by Desmond Morris. They're just so I can't nail it down to one, but I can give you a group of them. I can make you a pack of. I had to put that in this. I had to put references in this book I just wrote for Callisto Media, and it's I think it's going to be called Everyday Body Language or Understanding Body Language, and I had to put just some books in there, and my list was way too long. So I can't just say one, but I can say a group of books, but I can't just give you one. I would start with those 3 or 4 right there.
Yeah, I would say start with Desmond Morris, because it helps your understanding of human beings as a social mammal and grounds you in that. Got a shout out about Joe Navarro's Dictionary of Body Language, which is kind of a crazy title because body language isn't a language. It doesn't have any of the factors of language, but still, the title dictionary, it actually functions pretty well as that. And Joe is great at being kind of just accurate, trying to be as accurate as possible and no nonsense. So it's a good book.
He's also got a book that's for poker players called 200 Poker Tales or something. That's a fabulous book. I don't even know how to play poker, and I love that book. I've read it 4 or 5 times. It's a wonderful book. Sorry.
Thanks for telling us you don't know how to play poker.
I don't.
Because the math is really important.
Gathering. No cameras, just tables.
Seriously. But I don't know. But if you want to get together and you can teach me, we could try.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. He's sandbagging you. I can tell already.
I really don't know how to play.
Chase.
Okay, sorry, Chase.
Yeah, so these guys are giving you books if you want to become a freaking super nerd on this stuff, or you really want to get way down underneath skin. But if you want to get started, what really helped me at the beginning was a book by Barbara and Alan Pease called The Definitive Guide to Body Language. When I had it, it had a purple cover. I don't know what it looks like now. But it's very approachable. It's got really good pictures in there. But if you get that book, you're going to make a mistake that I made and took me about 2 years to recover from. As you're reading about body language in the beginning, it's almost immediate for your brain to imagine all that stuff as still images instead of moving images. So we get used to like, oh, I need to look for a guy going like this, not a guy going like this, like not the movement of the behavior. I need to look at these still pictures, and you're looking around like, I'm not seeing all these people just standing still.
Wait, can you hold that pose for me?
That's a great point.
The one tip.
But your brain is wired to read this, guys. Relax, pay attention. You'll see a lot of it. You want a lot of training.
Well, folks, thanks for coming on. And to the audience, my shameless plug, hit subscribe. It's down below. Hit the bell, please.
Right down here.
Yeah, down somewhere. I don't know how to work the camera here, but please subscribe. There's a lot of cool people. All of these guys have been on, and hopefully you'll be on again at different points with different mixes and matches. And all of you, thank you so much. This is a blast.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, man.